Major breaking news right now in a story we've been following for the past 14 days. Skyforce 10, you can see over Chester County, where the search for escaped killer Danelo Cavalcante is over. 4 independent sources are confirming to NBC 10's Deanna Durante, our Montgomery County Bureau reporter, that the escaped inmate has been caught. This has been a very difficult search. Let's go to Deanna now, live on the phone. Deanna, walk us through this, because law enforcement has been trying to catch up with him for 2 weeks.
We're still getting details as to exactly how this happened. Early this morning, we learned that they had tightened the perimeter around where they believed that he was, that overnight some information was developed from air investigative sources, whether it was planes or drones, but they were able to see some movement, I'm told by sources, in a very specific area of that perimeter. We learned the perimeter yesterday was about 2 miles, north and south, 5 miles wide, so a very large area there near French Creek State Park with a lot of tree cover. So trying to find some sort of movement there has been tricky, not just there, but in the other perimeter as well in southern Chester County. We've been told that about 8:20 this morning he was captured and he is alive. He is in custody. I am awaiting more details. I can tell you early this morning there was a SWAT team shift change, and they tightened that perimeter up with more members of the region SWAT team, some fresh team members that came in. Most of these men and women have been working 20-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, staying there, trying to make sure that they find him out in the heat. And so apparently maybe last night, with the way that the weather changed, some of that heat technology was able to pick up on Danelo Cavalcante, who they believe was on the ground. It sounds like he was taken into custody without incident. Keep in mind, he had been picking up things along the way here since his escape. When he took out of the Chester County prison, he had his clothes and a towel that was believed that he used to wrap around the barbed wire to get over that fence. Mm-hmm. And then over the last several days, he was picking up things along the way. Bags, shoes, a weapon. So we are not hearing if there was any kind of fight or discharge here. Right now, we're just hearing that he is in custody, alive, after what has been a very long and intense search. State police are bringing people to a press conference at 9 a.m. at the fire company that they have been staging for quite some time. And that is where we hope to get more information as to exactly how they found him. But obviously, a lot of relief there for people in the community. We saw yesterday as they were searching cars. People who lived along that area could not get home without state police who had long guns searching their trunks, checking their driver's license, looking in their back seats, trying to find this man. And over the last 24, 48 hours, we knew that there was going to be even more of a significant surge of law enforcement. Yesterday, we were seeing plates from New Jersey, New York. We know that many of the people who are coming in the last 2 weeks are from across the country. You have Border Patrol agents out there on township streets that were searching for him. So at this point, we can tell you that Danelo Cavalcante, after a 2-week search, is now in custody. Keith and Aaron?
Deanna, thank you. If you could just stick around for this. You'd mentioned there at the top, no word yet as to how the arrest went down, whether he was violent. Again, you'd mentioned this is somebody who had managed in the past 2 weeks to steal a van, to take a .22 caliber rifle, to steal clothes here and there and collect different items to keep him alive the last 2 weeks to sustain himself. Deanna, the inevitable question at this 9 o'clock news conference we're waiting for now is, how this process had went down. And I imagine we're going to have to wait for that information, right? You know what? There she is.
One of the tactics that Lieutenant Colonel had talked about was trying to exhaust him. And you think about last night, I don't know what it was like in Chester County. I can tell you not far from, about 30 minutes from the search, you had quite an intense thunderstorm in most areas. Was that enough? Was his hiding space flushed out? These are all questions that they're going to have. We had heard at one point that perhaps he could have been using storm drains or culverts to hide in. He's not a large man, so there was a lot of potential in these thick woods for him to be hiding, whether it was in storm drains or parts of this park that had trails and things like that. They had choppers up all day yesterday, as well as what we believe were planes doing surveillance. But the cover of the trees there, which we saw from the command post last week when they brought us in, there's so much still green cover that it was difficult to see, past those trees into the ground as to the movement. So was he hiding somewhere and just they saw him, or was it that he was trying to escape the storm? And again, you have these people who are out there, using night vision, looking for any movement. And it could be that you have that technology of the heat detection, seeing his body heat and having them move in the cover of night, and then he walks out and sees police. We're still going to wait for these exact details, but it should be very interesting to hear now that they're able to talk more about what they used. There's still a lot of information, despite the fact that we toured the command post and we could see what they were seeing from the air. There were some things we couldn't discuss and some things we just couldn't see to be able to tell you how they were doing this. For example, yesterday, as we were getting ready to go live at 6 o'clock, there was what we believe was some sort of a shift change. You saw all the different SWAT teams from the different regions. You had Montgomery County, you had Chester County SWAT team members all there, and they were moving in. They were staging in the elementary school parking lots, which, again, we couldn't show you, but we knew kind of where they were staging to be able to bring people in and out. Maybe about a dozen state police horses were coming out. I'm told that those horses, those mounted patrols, were being used to search the creek beds, to actually get in there, and the horses with the state police were searching in the creek there to see, could he be hiding on a bank? So they really used everything from horses to the latest technology here, but it will be very interesting to see what that final piece to this puzzle was, to be able to get in there and find him and bring him out without incident, because we're not hearing about any struggles here or anything like that at this point. I can tell you now that I'm hearing that he was caught in the area of Pfizer and Pottstown Road, the search area, the Route 23, Main Road, Route 100, Pottstown Pike, Main Road. And one thing I had been hearing was if he had tried to cross Pottstown Pike, then that could have been also where they would be able to get him, because there was a severe police presence there yesterday patrolling. Every one of those officers, as you can imagine, heavily armed at the time.
I'm so glad, Deanna, that you mentioned the terrain, because I feel like over the last 2 weeks, a lot of people that live in these areas where this perimeter was shifting, there was a sense of, what's happening? When is this going to happen? It's been 14 days. Has something gone wrong? Do law enforcement, do they know, are they closing in? And here we are. I think one of the questions asked at the news conference yesterday was like, did something go wrong?
Right.
Have you gotten the sense from law enforcement that, this was difficult, but they had this under control and they were slowly closing in, but there was only so much that they could reveal so as not to perhaps tip him off or tip anyone who may have assisted off? What was the sense that you got over the past few days as to how close we were to capturing Danelo Cavalcante?
To start with that, did something go wrong here? Anybody can Monday morning cornerback. I am not on the SWAT team or in law enforcement, but I can tell you, after dealing with police for the majority of my career and coming from a law enforcement family, the main thing that can go wrong here is if there is loss of life.
Right.
And that did not happen. So I think that they will probably be very clear to point that out, that not only, despite the fear of residents bumping into this man, you had a man who came face-to-face with him. And at the time now, they're both armed. There was no gun, there was no injury to either one of them, despite that resident firing off his weapon. There was no injury to people in homes. Of course, we had people living in fear, afraid he was breaking in. We had many reports where people thought he had broken in. And one of the things that state police was able to use to determine if it was him or not was mobile DNA. As you saw in the pictures, he didn't wear gloves. So to say, did something go wrong? Did he outsmart somehow? Perhaps. As we have heard the lieutenant colonel say, not every perimeter is 100% secure. In the movies, you could put up laser fences, but you're really relying on humans to do patrolling and to look one way and look the other. And clearly, you just needed that surge. I mentioned before, he's not a big person. So there was a lot of opportunity for him to hide. And I think the biggest thing we're going to hear as to what went right is, yes, it took some time. He's in custody, and we are not hearing about anyone who was hurt, which not law enforcement, not civilians. And at this point, we're not even hearing that he is injured.